If you take a stroll down any British high street, you'll quickly notice there's a distinct pecking order to where people buy their groceries. Up at the posh end, you have Waitrose, guarding the organic avocados and the freshly baked sourdough. In the sensible middle, Tesco and Sainsbury's are fighting over the everyday meal deals. Then you have Aldi and Lidl, causing absolute chaos with their middle aisle bargains and ruthless efficiency. And then, usually tucked away next to a bus stop, glowing with that unmistakable red and white sign, is Iceland. For as long as most Brits can remember, Iceland has been the legendary land of the £10 party platter, the emergency frozen pizza, and towering bags of chicken nuggets. To the average British shopper, the brand is often viewed as a quirky throwback to the 90s, acting as a simple discount freezer shop just happily bubbling along in the background of the high street. But assuming Iceland is just a retro discount shop is a huge mistake. Behind those sliding glass doors operates one of the sharpest, most brilliantly deceptive retail machines in the UK, quietly running rings around the competition. And the strategy they're using is going to completely change how you look at your weekly shop. The true cultural footprint of a brand usually reveals itself in how people talk about it. The supermarket has become a recurring joke, but in a distinctly affectionate way. People regularly admit to walking in for a simple pint of milk and walking out with a frozen TGI Fridays sharing platter, a giant bag of frozen Greggs sausage rolls, and a £10 bundle of highly specific branded frozen desserts. That sheer unpredictability is the whole point. The inventory is inconsistent in the absolute best way possible. Between the bizarre brand exclusives and the towering bulk offers, shoppers are constantly leaving the tills genuinely asking themselves what they just bought. But this chaotic energy is actually a highly calculated draw. While a place like Waitrose sells predictability and calm, Iceland sells a strange, highly addictive form of bargain hunting excitement. Those famous multi-buy deals create a completely gamified shopping experience where the consumer feels like they're somehow outsmarting the retail system. You walk out of the automatic doors feeling like you've just pulled off a minor heist purely because you managed to fill an entire freezer drawer for a fraction of what it would cost anywhere else. That scrappy, rebellious energy you feel walking down the aisles is completely authentic to the brand's DNA, dating all the way back to its founding in 1970. At the time, a young Woolworths trainee manager named Malcolm Walker was watching the retail giant operate from the inside out. He quickly spotted a glaring flaw in the system. The traditional grocery model was incredibly inefficient because fresh food rots, directly dragging profit margins down with it. Walker saw a massive opportunity here and recognized that frozen food was the ultimate waste reduction cheat code. Rather than pitching this revelation up the corporate ladder, Walker scraped together £30 for rent, went behind their employer's back, and quietly opened a tiny sideline shop selling loose frozen food in the Welsh town of Oswestry. Back in the 70s, the established retail titans completely dismissed frozen food as a low-tier, undesirable novelty. Walker, on the other hand, knew exactly what he was building. A traditional grocer constantly bleeds money through spoilage. Fresh produce rots in a matter of days, and those losses are automatically baked into the price the consumer pays at the till. Frozen peas, on the other hand, sit happily in a freezer for months. This fundamental economic advantage eliminated the massive shrinkage costs that burdened the big supermarkets. It allowed Iceland to aggressively undercut the competition on price while still turning a healthy profit. Woolworths eventually found out about the operation and fired him immediately, which actually gave Walker the exact push he needed. Forced to make Iceland his full-time job, he poured all his energy into rapidly scaling the business. The growth was relentless, successfully going public in 1984. By 1989, they had acquired their much larger southern competitor, Bejam. In one swift move, a scrappy northern startup became a national powerhouse with more than 400 locations. But becoming a massive corporate entity usually comes with a catch. As the new millennium dawned, the company decided to roll the dice. In May 2000, Iceland merged with Booker, a giant cash and carry wholesale business. To understand the logic here, you have to look at the mechanics of the food industry. Booker was a strictly business-to-business operation, acting as a massive distributor that supplied independent grocers, caterers, and pubs. The master plan was to take Iceland's booming high street retail presence and smash it together with Booker's massive wholesale supply network. It was supposed to create an unstoppable, vertically integrated food group generating over £5 billion in sales. In reality, it was an absolute disaster. The merger attempted to take Iceland, a scrappy entrepreneurial frozen food brand, and force it to seamlessly blend with Booker, which was a rigid, highly corporate wholesale machine. The culture clash was brutal and immediate. By early 2001, Walker was unceremoniously ousted from the very company he built. Handed over to a revolving door of outside executives and management consultants, Iceland quickly lost its identity. The brand spent the next few years teetering on the edge of total collapse, and things got so desperate that Walker eventually had to stage a dramatic comeback, stepping back in to rescue the dying business and rebuild its rebellious spirit from the ground up. This traumatic corporate era left a permanent mark on the company's culture. If you go to the official Iceland website today and click on the About section, there's a literal section titled The Dark Ages. This level of transparency is practically unheard of in modern retail, proving to the customer that Iceland is run by actual flawed human beings who hold grudges rather than faceless shareholders in a glass tower. And it was exactly this maverick, anti-corporate mindset that led them to completely bypass the high street and build their secret growth engine. Part of rebuilding that rebellious spirit meant acknowledging that their traditional battleground was fundamentally changing. While the classic Iceland store with its bright red sign remains a familiar sight on the high street, it's no longer the vehicle driving the company's future. The traditional British high street has increasingly become a logistical nightmare for the modern grocery shopper. Parking is often incredibly expensive or non-existent, dragging heavy bags of frozen food to a bus stop in the rain is a miserable experience, and those legacy retail shops are simply too small to hold the kind of inventory that generates real, scalable profit. Management looked at these cramped locations and realized they needed an entirely different format to capture the modern family shop. Their answer was quietly launched in 2014 as an under-the-radar experiment called the Food Warehouse. If you drive to a retail park on the outskirts of almost any major British town today, you'll easily spot these massive hangar-like buildings. Operating in cavernous spaces between 10 and 25,000 square feet, they were designed from the ground up to solve every single friction point of the traditional grocery run. They offer oceans of free parking and aisles wide enough to navigate a massive trolley without bumping into the person next to you. The format successfully clones the value and convenience of a giant wholesale club like Costco, but crucially, it completely scraps the annoying membership fees. Anyone can walk through the doors and start loading up, and this massive footprint allows the company to push lucrative bulk deals, exclusive homeware items, and gigantic branded catering deals that would never physically fit through the doors of a standard high street shop. This environment changes the entire psychology of the consumer, which directly translates to the company's balance sheet. A customer popping into a local high street Iceland for a quick midweek top-up might spend £15. That same customer, armed with a giant trolley in a car parked right outside a Food Warehouse, will easily drop well over £100. It perfectly captures the suburban family shopper who would normally drive to a massive Tesco Extra or an Asda, intercepting them with hyper-aggressive pricing on bulk goods right in their local retail park. This strategy is working so well that the two sides of the business are practically on different trajectories. While the core high street estate occasionally shrinks as older leases expire, the Food Warehouse is in aggressive expansion mode. Retail industry press regularly highlights management explicitly labeling this larger format as the true focus of growth, consistently outperforming the core stores in like-for-like sales as they actively hunt for dozens of new out-of-town sites to double their estate. They successfully engineered a completely different, highly lucrative economic model masquerading under the same corporate umbrella. Yet, finding a way to get people to buy in bulk was only half the puzzle. They also had to figure out how to keep their core demographic afloat during a brutal economic squeeze, leading them to execute a radical financial maneuver that completely blurred the lines between a supermarket and a bank. To fully grasp how Iceland locked in the loyalty of that rapidly expanding customer base, we need to look at how they responded when the UK economy took a massive nosedive. During the peak of the recent cost of living crisis, the company analysed their core demographic and saw families actively buckling under the immense financial pressure of rising energy bills and soaring inflation. They recognised a highly specific, recurring crisis known as the school holiday hunger gap. When schools close for the term, lower-income parents suddenly have to provide 5 extra meals a week per child, meals that are normally subsidised by the state. Usually, families caught in this sudden financial squeeze are forced to turn to high-interest credit cards or predatory payday loans, trapping them in a brutal cycle of debt just to put dinner on the table. Instead of just running a standard promotional discount to address this, management decided to step entirely outside of the boundaries of traditional retail and effectively built a microcredit lender right on top of their supermarket infrastructure. Supported by charitable organizations like the Esme Fairbairn Foundation and Social Enterprise Challenge Works, they rolled out the Iceland Food Club. The mechanics are completely straightforward. Shoppers apply for the scheme and, if successful, receive a preloaded card with a credit limit of up to £100. They can load an initial top-up of between £25 and £100 to use on groceries either online or right at the tills. The genius of the initiative is that the entire scheme is completely interest-free. The goal was purely to provide a secure financial buffer during the tightest weeks of the month, allowing shoppers to smooth out their cash flow without facing any hidden fees or debt traps. The national press, including heavy coverage in The Guardian, treated this as a groundbreaking move. Any supermarket can hand out a standard loyalty card, but actively helping a family survive a difficult month without charging them a single extra penny creates a ferocious level of brand dedication. Crucially, for Iceland's grand strategy, that fierce emotional loyalty guarantees massive, consistent foot traffic, which happens to be the exact fuel they need to power the most profitable and secretive engine of their entire business model. Today, selling a box of frozen fish fingers or a bag of peas simply doesn't generate massive wealth anymore. The profit margins on actual groceries are famously razor thin, constantly being chewed up by global inflation, energy costs, and fragile supply chains. To uncover the next major profit pool, Iceland had to look up from the chest freezers and start focusing on the screens. Management realized that a supermarket with millions of loyal, captive shoppers walking through its doors every week isn't just a place to sell food, but is also a massive, highly valuable physical media network. Walking down a supermarket aisle naturally puts a shopper in a highly active buying mindset. Because of this, major brands are absolutely desperate to get their adverts directly in front of consumers right as they make their final decisions on what to drop into their baskets. This highly lucrative concept is known as retail media. It's quickly become the ultimate gold rush in the grocery sector, and Iceland decided to capitalize on it with absolute precision. Rather than just hanging a few cheap televisions playing looped commercials from the ceiling, they went all in on high-end infrastructure. They partnered with a digital technology firm called Stratacash to wire up more than 700 locations, heavily targeting those massive new food warehouse sites with an incredibly advanced digital display network. The screens are integrated with camera-free sensor platforms, specifically using a system called Walkbase, designed to track the physical movements of shoppers below. These sensors measure footfall and dwell time with astonishing accuracy. Iceland knows exactly how many people walked past a specific digital end cap, and they know how many seconds a shopper lingered in front of an advert for a new brand of frozen pizza, and crucially, they can track whether that specific screen interaction actually translated into a physical sale at the tills. They took the hyper-accurate, targeted attribution data that brands usually have to buy from Silicon Valley giants like Facebook or Google and successfully dragged it into the physical retail world, creating a completely new, high-margin revenue stream for Iceland that's entirely decoupled from the wholesale cost of the food itself. As mentioned by Chris Regal, Stratocash's founder, running ads isn't enough. In retail media, it's not enough to simply run ads in store. You have to prove impressions and conversions. The ability to measure and validate shopper impressions is what transforms retail media from guesswork into a unique, performance-driven channel that delivers real value for brands and retailers. Our technology means that not only will the Iceland retail media team be able to accurately report performance to their brand partners, but that they'll also be able to gain crucial in-store insights to help serve their advertisers and customers better. But for this covert, high-tech media network to keep printing money, Iceland had to ensure their high street shoppers never felt alienated by the corporate machinery. To maintain that crucial disguise, they needed a charismatic figurehead to step directly into the public spotlight and loudly champion the working class. That charismatic figurehead came in the form of Richard Walker, the executive chairman and son of the founder. Walker stepped directly into the public spotlight and transformed himself into a highly visible media personality. He became a constant presence on television panels, national radio broadcasts, and prominent business podcasts, using his platform to loudly advocate for the everyday consumer. He openly discussed the harsh, behind-the-scenes realities of running a retail business during a massive economic squeeze, highlighting the brutal impact of inflation and rising energy bills on household budgets. By heavily leaning into this cost of living advocacy and speaking frankly about the struggles of the modern high street, Iceland successfully branded itself as the ultimate ally of the budget-conscious shopper. This relentless advocacy paid off in a massive way. The UK government formally recognised his influence when the Prime Minister directly appointed him as the expert cost of living champion. The official announcement from Downing Street explicitly stated that Walker was brought in to apply a real-world business experience to the everyday issues eating into household budgets. Having Number 10 publicly validate your supermarket boss as the nation's leading expert on budget management sends your brand credibility into the stratosphere. It legally and politically cemented Iceland as the official voice of the struggling consumer. Iceland made sure to back up this political positioning with ruthless pricing strategies, particularly during the worst months of the financial squeeze, commonly referred to as the January pinch. They massively expanded their £1 value range, adding dozens of new products to the line until it boasted over 700 items priced at £1 or less. Retail Gazette reported that sales of this specific value line soared by over 60% in the first half of January alone, with demand for £1 meals shooting up by 84% in a single week. They followed this up by rolling out viral initiatives, such as offering frozen vegetables for a single penny to help families stretch their budgets over the Christmas holidays. Now, common sense tells us that when a discount supermarket becomes this obsessed with rock-bottom prices, the quality of their supply chain is going to take a massive hit. The standard grocery playbook demands that you cut every single corner to protect those ultra-low margins, which usually means throwing ethical sourcing and environmental concerns straight out of the window. Yet, somehow, Iceland managed to completely rewrite those rules. They proved that protecting the planet doesn't have to be a luxury reserved for premium brands, and this unexpected environmental crusade really kicked into high gear in early 2018 when they sent shockwaves through the grocery sector, becoming the first UK supermarket to announce the total removal of palm oil from all their own label food. They aggressively linked their campaign directly to the devastating deforestation in Southeast Asia and the rapid collapse of the orangutan population. This bold stance culminated in their famous Christmas television advert featuring a cartoon orangutan named Rangtan. When broadcasting regulators actually banned the commercial from television for being too political, the resulting outrage caused the video to go massively viral online. The ban completely backfired on the regulators, cementing Iceland's reputation as a corporate disruptor willing to take a massive public stand. That very same year, they targeted an even bigger logistical nightmare, committing to become the first major global retailer to eliminate plastic packaging from their own brand products. And they certainly didn't stop at the rainforests or the packaging. Turning their attention to the oceans, Iceland set a global benchmark for seafood sustainability. Just a few years ago, you could only find a handful of certified sustainable fish products in their freezers. Fast forward to today, and they've officially become the first global frozen food retailer to ensure that 100% of their own label wild seafood is sourced from Marine Stewardship Council certified fisheries. Every single piece of own brand wild fish now carries that rigorous certification. It highlights a strange contradiction in the modern grocery market. A customer can walk into a brightly lit discount shop, fill their basket with budget frozen food, and simultaneously tap into one of the most sustainable supply chains in the sector. When you look back at the original paradox we started with, Iceland honestly looks like a retail relic. On the surface, it's a scrappy freezer shop that should have been absolutely crushed by the relentless expansion of German discounters or swallowed whole by massive online delivery services. But the reality is that Iceland survives and thrives precisely because it flat out refuses to play by the traditional rules of grocery retail. And in the ultimate plot twist, they somehow managed to champion the most budget-conscious consumers while simultaneously running the most ethical supply chain in the industry. But what do you reckon? Are you a regular at the food warehouse, loading up the boot with bulk deals, or are you still hitting the high street shops for those wild multi-buy offers? And more importantly, do you still think more supermarkets should be stepping in to offer interest-free loans like the Food Club, or is that a step too far for a grocery store? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, and we definitely want to hear about the wildest bargain you've ever walked out of an Iceland with. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the business of retail, give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next video. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay curious.